Welcome to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. I am your host, Angie Grant, generational healing specialist. And in this podcast, we dig deep into the things that hold us back as parents. I like to focus on challenging behaviors, kids who perhaps have experienced trauma, but also parents who ourselves have experienced our own traumas. And how do we use our own experiences, use our own energetic makeup, use our own inner knowing to parent our kids in a way that feels aligned for them and for us? Today, I want to talk about these concepts as they relate to co-parenting. In most situations, most families, most circumstances, we're co-parenting in some aspect, whether you're in a close relationship with the other parent or a separated relationship with the other parent. You might be co-parenting with maybe your own parents, or maybe you're co-parenting with your ex and their partner, or you're trying to co-parent with your partner who isn't the biological parent of your child. There are just so many different ways that we co-parent. And I think that there are many, I don't want to say rules, many concepts that apply across all co-parenting relationships. And so in this episode, I want to dig into some of these because I think that we are told this story, whether explicitly or through, television programs or the families that we see around us. I think that many of us are taught that when we're co-parenting with somebody that we're not in a relationship with, that more often than not, it's challenging. And I want to dispel that myth because we get to decide how challenging it is. I think about the concepts that I really focus on. I focus on mindset, human design, and emotional regulation. And when I think about the co-parenting relationship, whatever your relationship is with your co-parent, our happiness, our success in that relationship starts with our own thought process about the other parent. I think back to when I was co-parenting with my husband at the time. And I quickly, without having any mindset tools in my tool belt, without knowing really any of the things that I now share with parents, I quickly had it in my mind that if I wanted things done the right way, I had to do it myself. And that co-parenting wasn't something that really went well in our family. It was either I caved to parenting styles that I disagreed with, or I did what I wanted on my time. And none of that was really co-parenting. We weren't really parenting together. And in fact, there were decisions that were made about discipline with our daughter at first, and then later on with our son, that there was no discussion. And instead of when these discipline strategies were used, instead of me initiating a discussion, I just stuffed that frustration and anger about how things were handled with our kids. And that is not what I want to share with you about the power that we have. Because it seemed in the moment, for me at least, like that was the only option in my family. We didn't have a communication style or tools or support to help navigate parenting challenges. And I didn't know how much personal responsibility I really needed to take for my own happiness. So when I think about co-parenting, that was an example in a marriage where two parents were together. But I see examples similar to this time and time and time again, where one parent has a parenting plan and the other one either disagrees with it or just has their own parenting plan, and the parents aren't on the same page. And I think this becomes challenging because we often go into parenting without a plan. We go into parenting sometimes with a plan to not parent like we were parented, right? We want to undo any poor parenting that we perceived that we experienced. But for many of us, that's kind of the end of it, right? If our parents were really strict, many of us will steer towards wanting to be much more lenient with our kids. And if our parents were too lenient and we didn't like that, we might veer towards being more strict with our kids and having more boundaries and more rules. But oftentimes in parenting, even though I think it is the hardest job that any human will ever do, it comes with such great responsibility. We are so emotionally attached to this job. It comes oftentimes without any gratitude, no paycheck. And we go into it without a plan. It's like this thing that we're just expected to know how to do. We're expected to do it well. We're expected to never screw up. And it really doesn't work well that way. And I'm not saying there aren't all kinds of successful parents out there, but I think there are so many parents that are in the in between where we're questioning what we're doing. So I think the very first step to successful co-parenting in any type of relationship is to have a plan. And now I get it, right? You might be thinking, yeah, right, like I'm going to get them to make a plan with me. Well, that's actually not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting a plan for you. And I don't mean an action step plan necessarily. What I suggest is a plan for you about how you want to feel, about the results that you want to have in your relationship. When I think about a successful parenting plan, I had learned through one of my mentors a concept from Bob Proctor, which is based on the work of Napoleon Hill. It's this concept of the TFAR model, which essentially says that our thoughts and our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. So oftentimes when working with my clients, this is where I start in our coaching relationship, is helping them with what are those results that you want. And when we think about co-parenting, that result that we often want gets lost in the shuffle. We get so hyper-focused on what the other parent is saying or doing or not doing, how they're handling behaviors, how they're not listening to us. And we lose sight of what our actual intended result is, which for most of us as parents is that we want to have a connected relationship with our kids. And we allow our reactions to that co-parent get in the way of that. So this is one of my challenges in this episode for you is have you really thought through, written out, imagined what kind of result that you want for your relationship with your kiddo or kiddos? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Take other people out of the equation. It's just you and your kids. What kinds of things are happening in your relationship with your child or children? What kinds of things are you saying to them? What kinds of things, how do you feel when you're with them? What kinds of experiences are you having with them? I really encourage you to, when you're done listening to this episode, to get out your journal, grab a piece of paper, whatever your downloading process is. Maybe it's grabbing a canvas and painting, or going through a walk in nature and just letting your mind roam. But I really encourage you, if you're struggling in a co-parenting relationship, to start first with your goal. Start first with your result that you want with your kiddo. And really engage all five of your senses as you think about what you want with your kids. Engage your sight, your taste, smell, what you hear, and what you feel. And engage your emotional response system. Allow yourself time to really feel what it feels like to be connected with your kiddo, even just for a minute. When you have a clear vision of what you want for your child and your relationship with your child, which cannot be dependent on how your child behaves, when you have that clear vision of what you want for your child, then the other three parts of this equation become easier. Because as I was saying, the T-FAR model, right? So it starts with circumstances, and then it's our thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. So if we work backwards, right? So we just talked about what kind of result that you want in your family with your child or children. So take one step back. What is one action that you can take every day to create more space, more room for that connected relationship with your child? Is it something that you say to them? Is it something that you do for them? Is it something that you do for yourself? I oftentimes in my work with clients will help my clients see that sometimes we get so focused on that end goal with our kids that we forget about how incredibly important we are in that equation. We get so focused on trying to fix things with our kids because we're disconnected or our relationship isn't what we want it to be, that we forget that we have our own nervous system that is reacting to perceived threats in our life, which sometimes are the co-parent. And so sometimes that action step that we need to take in this equation is about regulating our own nervous system. Sometimes it's about seeing how incredibly important that is in this equation. Because we know that if we're approaching our kids, our co-parent, anybody in our life, when we're in a reactive state, we don't say and do what matches our intention. And then we're not working towards our goal. Sometimes, though, it's hard to take that action step if we haven't yet done the work on our thoughts and our feelings. So, as we work through this model and working backwards, again, I'm actually going to jump over the feelings, although sometimes it's helpful to start there. But I would encourage you, if you're stuck in this loop where you're struggling with your relationship with your child and with your co-parent, is to take a step back in that equation and really ask yourself, what is a thought that would help me work towards my goal of being more connected with my child? That's the result that I want. But my current thought is that my child's other parent is sabotaging my relationship with them. Or I'm so frustrated because they won't parent the way that I want them to. Or I feel unheard because I'm trying to assert what I know is right for my kids and they won't listen to me. If we're stuck in this thought loop that we're blaming somebody outside of ourselves, I encourage you to shift that thought to something about you. Because more often than not, when we're feeling frustrated, angry, resentful, rageful, whatever feeling that you're feeling about that relationship, oftentimes when we listen to our words, that that negative feeling is driven by thoughts that it's the other person's fault. And this, as a parent, can be such a hard pill to swallow. I know for myself, it was so easy to blame my ex for my frustration. And I had all kinds of people around me confirming that I was right, confirming that it made sense that I was so frustrated. And yet I wasn't taking responsibility for my own thoughts and feelings. And then my own thoughts and feelings were spilling into the way that I was showing up for my kids, which wasn't fair to them. And I wasn't yelling at my kids. I wasn't doing inappropriate things in my parenting relationship necessarily, but my belief system and my thought process fueled the way that I showed up for them instead of me taking ownership for what was happening inside of me. So, this is my second challenge for you. The first one was to create a vision about what you want for your kids, what you want for your relationship with your kids. And my second challenge for you is really notice the thoughts that are popping up that lead to your frustration or your anger or your annoyance or your whatever that feeling is that's most present in your parenting relationship. And really investigate, be curious. Don't beat yourself up, but what is that thought that's driving those feelings? Because more often than not, that thought is about blaming somebody outside of you. And so this is my challenge. It's kind of a two-part challenge is to notice that thought with curiosity and then to really challenge yourself to create a new thought that is more in line with what that result is that you want. So if your current thought is that, um, my co-parent is sabotaging everything I'm trying to do with the kids, then perhaps a new thought might be something like, I get to parent the way that I want to teach my kids the skills that I want them to learn. And I have that power. Or it might be that I have the power to have a conversation with my co-parent to really listen and understand where they are coming from instead of trying to go in there with my own agenda. Or maybe the new thought is that I am so happy and grateful that I have a co-parent that can reduce some of the burden for me sometimes, even though it might feel like more of a burden to you in the moment. Being able to shift our thoughts helps us take back our power for our what we're thinking and what we're feeling and how we're behaving. And so this is what I want to leave you with today is these two really powerful tasks because I think that it gets so easy to blame the other parent. It gets so easy to take our own responsibility for how we're thinking and feeling and pass it on to somebody else. Which when we do that, we're we're sacrificing our own power in our parenting relationship. We're giving up our own authority to create the result that we want in our relationship with our kids. Nobody else gets to decide how we think and feel. Yet all too often we allow others to, worm their way into our minds and influence our thoughts and feelings. But we let them do that. We don't know we're doing it most of the time. But when we can be more curious about the thoughts that we're having and really explore ways to shift it, to flip it on its back, to to take back that control and then just start noticing how a new thought creates a new feeling and how a new feeling over time creates new actions in you and has an influence on the results that you want in your most important relationship and in the hardest job that you will ever do. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. And if you are really stuck and you don't know how to do this, this is the work that I love doing. I do offer a free consult, and I'd love to help you along your parenting journey as well. So I have the links in the show notes, but it's angiegrant.com, although there's a D in there, Angie, GRANDT.com. So until next time, keep working on that vision about your family.